of Nigerians going to farm so that they can farm, produce food, and feed the nation also. But they were hacked down by other Nigerians in collaboration with the Libyan-trained terrorists that are called by the Nigerian media herdsmen. I think something needs to be done. Mine is to call for prayers because, like my colleague said, virtually everybody is tired of 1 minute silence. 1 minute silence. We need to pray that the Lord will grant us divine protection against forces of evil that are all over in the land. Thank you, Mr. President.
So it goes to the prayers so that we can. Prayer one says, observe 1 minute silence for the 7 people killed in the Kwande local government of Benue State. Those in favor of prayer one say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer two, advise the Minister of Defense to withdraw his statement on his call for the withdrawal of the anti-grazing laws in Benue and Taraba, as these laws were properly enacted in accordance with the powers of the state houses of assembly. Those in favor of prayer two say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional prayer? No. Can we all observe the 1 minute silence? May the gentle souls rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate. Yeah, point of order, Shehu Sani.
Mr. President, I come under Order 42 and 52. Order 42 reads thus: the matter for public discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. And under 52, it is stated thus: notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding, for which notice is required except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President, I stand here before this Senate to make a formal presentation of a report that has been circulating both within the country and globally. This report is a report compiled and publicly presented by the Amnesty International. It is a report that contains details of inhuman and degrading treatment of women in the Northeast IDP camp. And the report carries this.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Shehu Sani did approach me in line with our rules. I need to seek the leave of our colleagues for us to take this motion. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Carry on, Senator Shehu Sani.
Mr. President, thank you. The report by the Amnesty International is a report that carried details and empirical evidence of torture, rape, and starvation of women detained in the northeastern part of Nigeria. Many of these women are women that have survived or escaped Boko Haram attacks and invasion. As a democracy, we have a twin obligation to prosecute the war on terror but in every possible way to protect and defend the fundamental rights of Nigerians. Mr. President, it is of concern that this report impinges on the integrity, the image, and reputation of not only the security forces of Nigeria, but Nigeria as a country. We have seen reports like this by such a credible international organization being discussed globally. We have the constitutional obligation as the region and part of this country that has been overtaken in the last few years by Boko Haram, and for which it has become a hope for humanitarian activities. This damning and indicting report that is presented before the Nigerian public and globally has the capacity and the ability of denting the war on terror in Nigeria. Mr. President, this report is not simply a thesis by Amnesty International. It contains names, identity, photographs, instances, and personal confessions of victims of this rape, starvation, and torture in the northeastern part of Nigeria. The response that followed these reports was simply a dismissal by the presidency and the Nigerian security forces. But I think as a parliament, we have a duty to address this issue. We should see human rights report as a mirror and as a compass. A mirror that will give us the shape of ourselves, the image of our actions in the Northeast, and the need to make amends, make corrections, and make adjustments where necessary, so that we can prosecute a war that is free from moral questions and a war that is also in line with our own conscience. Mr. President, a report by Amnesty International is not just a report that we should dismiss as a report by either the opposition or any partisan political group. It's a report that is taken very seriously by international organizations and especially the United Nations. If this report finds itself on the table of world leaders, it is a report of ourselves. And then what have we done about it? Simply to issue a two-paragraph statement and said it never happened, or the amnesty is working to undermine our government, or simply the amnesty is another arm of the opposition of this country. I think we are not getting it right. This report, for which I will offer to request that Amnesty present or make it available for every senator here to see, contains all that we need to ask questions. Ask questions on how this war is being prosecuted. As a country that is faced with an insurgency that is undermining our peace, our unity, our stability as a country, we have a duty to appreciate the sacrifices of men and women from the armed forces and other security agencies that are making the ultimate sacrifice of giving up their lives in order for us to be in peace. But we should also understand that as a republic and a democratic republic we have, there is that moral duty for us as a democracy to ensure that whatever we do is in line with the dictates of our constitution, is in line with the values of our democracy, is also in line with the international global best practices as far as issues of human rights are concerned. Mr. President, it is a fact that many members, servicemen and women from the Nigerian Army, Nigerian Air Force, the Navy, the police, and the DSS have paid the ultimate sacrifice in an attempt to combat the terrorists that are bedeviling and also posing a serious security threat to our country. We have seen many of our soldiers dying on the battle line, on the front line. We have seen many policemen, many DSS men, and other security agencies making sacrifices. But this is unacceptable. The war against terror must not be a blank check for undermining the fundamental rights of innocent people. We have a duty to protect the victims and to provide for them. That is what is needed, and that is what is done globally. As a parliament and as a senate, there is this duty for us to deliberate and discuss this issue with the view of bringing the culprits to book and also making the necessary amends so that the war against insurgency in Nigeria is not being seen globally as a recourse to violate the fundamental human rights of citizens who are also victims. If people can be victims of this insurgency, we should provide succor for them. We should provide succor for them. We should provide the comfort and security they need as a people. Mr. President, this presentation, as it is in this report, will go a long way in giving us the necessary guidance on what we need to do as a nation and as a government. Our security agencies should preoccupy themselves with protecting lives and properties of our people and not dissipating their energy on other issues that are of no value. I thank you for this opportunity, and God bless.
Senator Nala.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. I sympathize with the position of distinguished Senator Shehu Sani on this report. Intricate as the report looks like, I accept the fact that it is a report by an international organization shows that a little bit of responsibility exists to carefully look at that report. However, I equally want the Senate to understand the intricate nature of this war. Happily enough, Senator Shehu Sani has accepted the fact that members of the armed forces and other security agencies have paid supreme price in this intricate war. Now, the nature and character of what we have in the country makes it almost practically impossible not to have the kind of report that the Amnesty is reporting about Nigeria. We must recognize the fact that we are not fighting a war with a defined enemy. Even on the floor of this Senate, we are in difficulty to understand what exactly is happening. 1,001 names have been ascribed to these people, from herdsmen to Boko Haram, to insurgents, to whatever. So the descriptions are endless. Now, because the descriptions are endless, it means the nature and character of the war itself cannot be determined. And therefore, the consequences that will follow can equally not be predicted. And if it cannot be predicted, then it means the report of the Amnesty in respect of this matter, as intricate like I describe it as it is not something that we can wish away. We should have accepted the fact that there is the need to look into it. And after looking into it, then you can come out with a finding and say, what we have found out does not represent what the Amnesty International report is saying, but that what we have found out is this position, which is contrary to our position. But at the same time, I want the Senate to understand the fact that, and I'm happy enough that the Senate in unison have accepted the fact that there is a need to pay glowing tribute to members of the armed forces and other security agencies that are involved in this fight. So while I accept the position of distinguished Senator Shehu Sani, I'm only merely appealing to the senators distinguished senators to understand the fact that the nature and character of what we face today as a nation is so intricate that the consequence of the engagement of the two forces cannot necessarily be determined by some level of accuracy. So that being the case, I concur with the position taken by the distinguished Senator Shehu Sani and still maintain my position that a little bit of caution should be applied in determining this matter.
Deputy Leader, I can see you are struggling on both ways. I can see many people raising their hands, but I think Deputy Leader did raise a point. Whatever your contributions are going to be, it will be rather speculative, in the sense that you have not seen the report. So what I would like to push is that let's go straight. His prayer, he's saying, is for us to investigate the report, make the report available to members. We investigate the report, and we can now have a more informed position before we contribute. So if that's the case, if you all agree, I'll just go straight to the prayer, which says to investigate the report with the view of getting to the root and veracity of the report. Those in favor of that prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. I think because also this report, my initial thing would be to refer to judiciary, unless we think that it would require, because it's not just the issue of human rights we want to look at. I think we also want to look at the terms of engagement. So I want some guidance here. Whether we should just refer just to judiciary, or we should have an ad hoc committee that has a representation of not just judiciary, because of the issues go beyond just human rights. Yes, Senator Boucher.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, my own is I'm coming by way of caution that as even an additional prayer, I want to advise that as a parliament, let us do everything possible to encourage the military, our armed forces.
We've gone past that. Yes, well, I thought you were going to contribute to whether we should have an ad hoc committee or yes, Senator James Manja.
Mr. President, sir, my respected colleagues, I detest James Manager Delta South. I detest this ad hoc team. Mr. President, I want to believe that you are the chairman of the selection committee. And as chairman of the selection committee, with your members of your leadership, you have carefully chosen people to be chairmen and members of the different committees. This is purely a matter for the judiciary committee. And the committee is there, and it's being led by a gentleman. And people from different places make up membership of that committee. So, ad hoc, I don't think this is a case for ad hoc committee. I sincerely believe that the judiciary committee, except of course, if you believe that 1-2 other committees can be co-opted.
That is what we're looking at, that we should not look at it purely from a human rights point of view. I think they will be well informed too if they understand the challenges also, those in defense. So unless that is why to have a balanced composition of that committee, that is the reason. So what I think we'll do is that we'll have an ad hoc, but it will have maybe chairman, vice of the relevant committees that will be important, judiciary, defense, or 1 or 2. So if we agree, I think that will probably be the best way of, so it's not just a committee made up of just anybody, but committees that are relevant in this subject matter. Yes. No, we'll put it together. I will announce. Leadership will put it together and announce. Yes. All right. Thank you. Also, Senator Shehu Sani, come and lay the report. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished and respected colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Special Duties on the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Abdul Aziz Nyako, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Nyako.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to move the motion that the Senate receives the report of the Committee on Special Duties on the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Entirely Displaced Persons. I so move.
Senator Lidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion so ably moved. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Special Duties on the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons Bill 2018, SB 335. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Nyako, come and lay your report, please. Can I have that list? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President C&C for the confirmation of the nomination of Honorable Justice Adamu Abduka Farati as Chief Judge of the Federal High Court in accordance with the provisions of Section 250, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President C&C to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the request of Mr. President C&C be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative action to be taken. I so move.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, be referred to the appropriate committee for consideration. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the request of President C&C for the confirmation of nomination of Honorable Justice Adamu Abduka Farati as the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court in accordance with provisions of Section 251 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. This matter is referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters. Report back to us as soon as possible. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Independent National Electoral Commission on the screening of the 3 resident electoral commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission as listed on the order paper. 1. Elder Monde Udo Tom Akwa Ibom, new appointment. 2. Atahiru Garba Madami, Niger, replacement. And 3. Barrister Festus Okoye, Southeast Geopolitical Zone, new appointment. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Suleiman Nazif, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Senator Suleiman Nazif.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my highly respected colleagues. My name is Senator Suleiman Nazif, and I represent Bauchi North. I rise to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on INEC on the screening of the following nominees for confirmation for appointment as resident electoral commissioners as so moved.
Senator Rosoko.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Rose Oko, Cross River North. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on INEC on the screening of the following nominees for confirmation for appointment as resident electoral commissioners.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on INEC on the screening of the following nominees as stated by leader, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Najib, come and come and lead the report and then present the report. Yeah? Senator Nazif, present your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, my name is Senator Suleiman Nazif. I represent Bauchino. Report of the Senate Committee on Independent National Electoral Commission on the confirmation or nomination as national and resident electoral commissioners respectively. Preamble. The Senate at its plenary sitting on Thursday, December 21st, 2017 and Thursday, 31st May 2018 deliberated on the request by Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces for the confirmation of nominations as national commissioners and resident electoral commissioners respectively. These appointments were made pursuant to Section 154(1) of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, which requires that the appointment of chairman or members of any bodies established under Section 153(1) of the Constitution shall be made by the President, and the appointment shall be subject to the confirmation by the Senate. Nominees: 1. Festus Okoye, Imo State National Electoral Commissioner. 2. Elder Monde Udo Tom Akwa Ibom, Resident Electoral Commissioner. 3. Garba Atahiru Madami, Niger State Resident Electoral Commissioner. And 4. Ahmed Bello Mahmoud, Zamfara State Resident Electoral Commissioner. Methodology. In furtherance of its legislative mandate on the referrals, the committee requested for and received the curriculum vitae, security clearance, and other supporting documents of the nominees and invited them to appear before it for screening exercise. Screening 3.0. Festus Okoya, Esquire, Imo State. The committee interviewed Barrister Festus Okoya and received explanation regarding his life, work experience, suitability, competence, and integrity for appointment as National Commissioner, Independent Electoral Commission. Committee resolution. Having studied the nominees' curriculum vitae, in addition to exhaustive interaction and deliberations with him, members were satisfied with his wealth of experience in legal profession, in addition to being a human rights crusader, constitutional lawyer, and a member of the Independent Electoral Monitoring IEMG, make him suitable for confirmation as National Commissioner. Mr. Atahiru Garba Madami, Niger State. The committee interviewed Mr. Atahiru Garba Madami and received explanations regarding his life, work experience, suitability, competence, and integrity for appointment as Resident Electoral Commissioner representing Niger State. Committee resolution. Mr. Tahir G. Madami demonstrated a high level of competence in response to questions put to him. A painstaking study of the nominees' curriculum vitae by the committee indicates that members were satisfied with the nominees' academic and wealth of experience in various fields make suitable for confirmation as resident electoral commissioner. Elder Monday Udo Tom, Akwa Ibom State. Committee resolution. The committee took an in-depth study and analysis of the nominees' curriculum vitae, juxtaposed same with his working experiences, and concluded that his wealth of experience will be of immense value to the Independent National Electoral Commission. He is suitable for confirmation as a resident electoral commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Ahmed Bello Mahmoud, Zamfara State. Committee resolution. The committee, in his wisdom, has come to a decision to reject his nomination for confirmation as a resident electoral commissioner for Independent National Electoral Commission based on a petition written against the nominees from the state. Findings. After the screening exercise, the committee deliberated on the nominees' suitability for appointment as National Commissioner and Resident Electoral Commissioners respectively, and hereby make the following findings. 1. That the nominees, Barrister Festus Okoye, Elder Monde Udo Tom, and Mr. Atahiru Garba Madami, have satisfied the requirement of Section 1541 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended and the Electoral Act. 2. That there is no petition or any negative report against the nominees, also from the security clearance made available by security agencies to the committee. The nominees have no negative report against them. And number 3, that the nominees are fit and proper persons for appointment as National Commissioner and Resident Electoral Commissioners, respectively. Mr. President and my highly respected colleague, general observation. We wish to reiterate for avoidance of doubt that these appointments satisfy the constitutional provision of Section 1541. It should also be stated that Barrister Festus Okoye was nominated to fill the vacant position of the National Commissioner representing Southeast Geopolitical Zone. In the same vein, Mr. Atahiru Garba Madami was nominated to replace the nominee for the position of Niger State Resident Electoral Commissioner, who was hitherto rejected by the Senate because he hails from the same local government area and senatorial district with the serving National Commissioner of the Commission. The Senate may wish to recall that the nomination of Elder Monde Udo Tom was earlier stood down, but after due consultation, the committee recommended him for confirmation. 9. Recommendation. The Senate Committee on Independent National Electoral Commission, after careful scrutiny of the curriculum vitae and other accompanying documents and security clearances of Barrister Festus Okoye, Elder Monde Udo Tom, and Mr. Atahiru Garba Madami, and having been satisfied about their exposure, experience, performance, qualifications, and integrity, except Ahmed Bello Mahmoud, who had petitioned against him from the state, the committee recommends as follows. 1. That the Senate do confirm the nomination of A. Festus Okoye, Imo State National Electoral Commission. B. Elder Monde Udo Tom, Akwa Ibom State Resident Electoral Commissioner. C. Garba Atahiru Madami, Niger State Resident Electoral Commissioner. As National Electoral Commissioners and Resident Electoral Commissioners, respectively. 2. That the Senate do reject the nomination of Ahmed Bello Mahmoud as Resident Electoral Commissioner representing Zamfara State for the 3rd time. I so move. Thank you, Mr. President.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Let me thank Senator Nazif and his colleagues. the very painstaking work they've done and for the beautiful recommendation they've made. As I supported the recommendation, let me quickly say that in respect of Barrister Festus Okoye, that is indeed a genuine civil society man and an activist. He's also a very responsible lawyer and successful one for that matter. Festus Okoye is a committed Democrat. I'd like to say here that I can vouch that he will be independent. Festus Okoye.
Yes, Senator Marafa. Senator Marafa, you have to comport yourself in a manner.
Your Excellency, the point I'm making is that with a man such as Festus Okoye, we are strengthening the independence of the National Electoral Commission. Because I know there's a man that's independent-minded, he's a true Democrat, he's a civil society activist, and it's going to be a possible check on the possible abuse of the powers and responsibilities of the Independent Electoral Commission. So I agree entirely with the committee that Festus Okoye and all those other ones earlier recommended should be confirmed by this Senate.
Yes, point of order, Senator Marafa.
Thank you, Mr. President, my well-respected colleagues. Mr. President, before I raise the point of order, to buttress my point, let me say that, number one.
Which order have you commanded?
Uh, 127, sir.
Read.
In the confirmation of a nominee, the committee shall not call as witness any person other than the nominee. However, resort may be had to memorandums submitted to the committee. If any, such memorandum shall contain the names of the writer, verifiable address, a clear and dated signature, and shall be accompanied by an affidavit deposed to the veracity of the content of this. Mr. President, there was a petition by the state governor opposing the nomination of Barrister Mahmoud. Mr. President, in that petition, the governor alluded to just one thing, that Barrister Mahmoud was not from Zamfara State. According to him, Mahmoud is, or was, because I don't even know which one to use, from Sokoto State. Mr. President, my colleague Senator Kaura stood on the floor of this Senate to say that Mahmoud hails from Kebbi State. Mr. President, I know Barrister Mahmoud's parents, his ancestors, hailed from Edo State. That is a fact. But the report of this committee on that day stated in very clear terms, Mahmoud went to primary school in Gusau. He was born in Gusau, went to primary school in Gusau, went to secondary school in Anka, which is in Zamfara State, and later to Usman Danfodio University, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in law. Mr. President, if the governor, and I have said it, this is hypocritical. It's hypocrisy at its best. The governor, as I am speaking today, his chief of staff, the parents of our chief of staff today, who represent me from my own local government, and that was a commissioner representing me in the State Executive Council. Both his father and mother are, or we are from Ogomosho. Resident in Safa local government, yes, the commissioner was born in Safa local government. And he was made a commissioner, and today he is Governor Yari's chief of staff. Our head of service, both his father and mother, are from Sokoto State. And today, as I'm speaking here, he is the head of service of Zamfara State. Mr. President, if Yari is honest, let him sack these people. Then write a petition to this Senate demanding for the rejection of somebody that hails from Kebbi State. Mr. President, this report, again, I want to say, is not a true testimony of what happened in the committee of INEC. Senator Nezifi compromised. Yes, he compromised. Yes, he compromised, and I have evidence. I will show it.
Senator Marafa, I have to call you to order. That is, no, you can't say that. You cannot say that. You cannot say that. Well, all right, thank you. Senator James Manager.
Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues. No,
Marafa, please, can you sit down? Thank you. Yes, Senator James Manager.
President, my highly respected colleagues, James, if your war manager, CON Delta South. Mr. President, unknown to my very good friend and colleague, Senator Kabiru Marafa, I rise to say one or two things to complement what he has just said on the positive side. And therefore, give me a chance, Marafa. Mr. President, as far as I'm concerned, this report is not very complete. Not very complete in the sense that it's talking about the committee in receipt of a petition. The committee has not come out to say what the committee investigated and the outcome on the result of that petition in rejecting this particular nominee. Yes.
Point of order, Deputy Senate President.
Sorry, with due respect to Senator James Manager, there's a matter we just need to resolve if we have to proceed. And I come under Order 53, 7 and 8. Order 53 says that it shall be out of order to use offensive and insulting language. It says no senator shall impute improper motive to another senator. Sir, because this borders on integrity of all of us and our individual privileges. So no matter how aggrieved my friend and colleague, Senator Marafa may be, he has to obey our rules. So if he has anything to the contrary, he can write a petition. But in the course of the debate, this is part of the rules of debate. You cannot impute an improper motive against a colleague. So I would like that the court, that is the presiding officer, rule on this, please, so that we can proceed.
Senator Marafa, there's no doubt at all that what you said is totally out of order. In the words you have used to describe a colleague, and I think in that case, first of all, I'll rule you out on your point of order. But yes, and if you push this, if you push this any further, I should withdraw it. Otherwise, I will have to refer the matter to ethics. I think if you did, I think you should withdraw it and apologize to him, and we'll make progress on this matter.
We are talking of two things. You are saying you rule me out of order, and you are asking of withdrawal. Withdrawal, yes, I can withdraw. Yes, but to say that, sir, to say that you rule me out of order, I disagree, sir. No. Wait.
Let's take. Say.
Yes, my colleagues, we should rise up against the truth. People should rise up. Yes. Yes, Mr. President, if it is your wish that to go to ethics, but if that is your advice, I withdraw my comments.
Apologize to your colleague. Let's take it one by one.
I won't apologize. Yes, I won't. Yes. Mr. President, on your advice, I withdraw my comments, but I stand on my point of order that this provision as contained in the report is against our law, and it cannot stand. There is no affidavit. I want him to show us the written affidavit as demanded by Order 127. Unless he does that, this report is null and void and it cannot stand in this chamber, Mr. President. It cannot. Yes, unless if it is.
Yeah, Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. You see, the Deputy Senate President raised a very, very, very fundamental prohibition of our rules of debate, which is our rule. I just want to seize this opportunity to remind distinguished Senator Marafa of the fact that he has a covenant which he took here holding the Quran to say that he will abide by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law and the rules of the Senate, sir. And it's under obligation, sir. It's an obligation. He cannot run away from it. The advice given by the Senate President is for your own good, because everything we say here is on record. And that's why we identify our names by our constituency and where we come from before we commence any debate. So I am of the opinion, and I'm appealing to my colleague, distinguished Senator Marafa, to accept the advice in his own interest and in the overall interest of the institution of the National Assembly, i.e., to first of all apologize to his to withdraw the statement and apologize to his colleague, because there is no how, under the oath of office he has taken, that he can justify what he said on.
Okay, Deputy Leader, I think you've made your point. He has taken his position. With all due respect, you have rounded up. Yeah, I think that the best that we've done to give him advice. He has chosen the path that he will take. But I think I'm very strong. The comment he has made to a colleague of ours is a comment to all of us. And I do not believe. I think, Leader, let us move. We go into Committee of the Whole and take this report. We take your comment on you withdrawn, but you've said you will not apologize, and I think that, to me, that is a very strong point. We take note of that, but there's no way. You have formally agreed, you have withdrawn. I accept it from there. I give you that. I'll take it that you have withdrawn. No, it's okay. It's on record. Please, it's on record that James Manja has withdrawn from where he was going to say. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion moved by the leader that we resolve into Committee of the Whole to consider the report. I so second.
Those in favor that we resolve Committee of the Whole say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Festus Okoye as National Electoral Commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Elder Monday Udo Tom as Resident Electoral Commissioner of the Independent INEC Electoral Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Galba Ateru Madami as Resident Electoral Commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Do the Senate reject the nomination of Ahmed Bello Mahmoud as Resident Electoral Commissioner representing Zamfara State? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. I'll put the question again. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Senate leader, will you progress?
Mr. Chairman, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate reverse the plenary for the charge to report progress.
Order 43, sir.
Hello. Distinguished colleagues, let me put the question, sorry. Let me put the, because the question, would the Senate approve? No. Would the Senate approve? Yeah, the wrong question. Would the Senate approve the nomination of Ahmed Bello Mahmoud as Resident Electoral Commissioner representing Zamfara State? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. Chairman, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate reverse the plenary for the charge to report progress.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I rise the second motion that the chairman reports progress. That's the second.
Those in favor of the motion of short progress say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yeah, point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President, my well-respected colleagues, Senator Kabiru Garba Marafa, representing Zamfara Central. Mr. President, I rise under Order 43, personal explanation. Mr. President, I don't want to take too much of your time. Looking at the honor done to Zamfara State, not me, by my colleagues, I am most humbled by the solidarity extended to me and the people of Zamfara State. And in view of that, Mr. President, I want to sincerely apologize to all of them and to everybody that feels offended by what I said about the Committee of Island, including the chairman and the people of Bauchi State where he represents. Are you okay with that one? Thank you, yes. And the President of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes.
Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on INEC on the screening of Mr. President nominees for appointment as resident electoral commissioners and approved the nomination of Elder Monday Udotom Akwa new appointment, Ateri Gabam Dami Niger replacement, Barrister Festus Okoye Southeast Geopolitical new appointment, Ahmed Bello Mahmoud Zamfara new appointment as National Electoral Commissioner and Resident Electoral Commissioners. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Elder Monday Udo Tom Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Elder Monday Udo Tom as Resident Electoral Commissioner of the Independent Electoral Commissioner? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Atero Garba Medam as nomination as the Resident Electoral Commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Ahmed Bello Mahmoud as Resident Electoral Commissioner of Independent National Electoral Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Barrister Festus Okoye as National Electoral Commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Balbasi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Mr. President, I'll come under two orders. Order 43 and Order 52. Yes, Mr. President. President, by your leave, please, can I please read?
Go ahead.
President, by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted details to the President of the Senate when he leaves to make his sought. Order 52, Mr. President. Notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the Senate. Mr. President, let me say that as a state in Akwa Ibom, we are very desirous to have a resident electoral commissioner representing our state. But I must also put on record, Mr. President, that I am not against the nominee from Akwa Ibom, Elder Monday Tom, who is from my senatorial district. I am not also against the works of the committee, but I know for sure, Mr. President, that when at the initial stage that this matter came up, excuse me, let me finish. This matter came up, Mr. President, I had received a petition in my office as a
Yes, point of order. Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. I draw the attention of this Senate. I draw the attention of this Senate to Order 53, Rule 16, and with your permission, I read, sir.
Read.
It shall be out of order to attempt to reconsider any specific question upon which the Senate has come to a conclusion during the current session, except upon a substantive motion for the session. So that is the position, sir. Let's make progress. We have a lot to do today. in view of what is contained in the other paper. So I...
Senator Nala, your point of order is sustained. And Senator Albert Abasi, your point of order is ruled out of order. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the Conference Committee report on the National Transport Commission Amendment Bill 2018. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate and the House passed different versions of the National Transport Commission Amendment Bill 2018. The Conference Committee of both houses have met and harmonized the differences in accordance with Senate Standing Order 87. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Olubenga Ashafa to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the conference report.
Senator Benga Ashafa.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator Benga Ashafa representing Lagos Senatorial District, I rise to move that the Senate do receive and consider the Conference Committee report on National Transport Commission Bill 2018 SB 242. Mr. President, may I call the attention of the Secretariat to the fact that the National Transport Commission Bill 2018 SB 242 should not have amendment. Mr. President, sir. Mr. President, I'm calling the attention of the Secretariat that amendment should be removed. There is an error in the other paper. It is National Transport Commission Bill, not Amendment Bill.
All right. Nanya, take note. Senator Gilbert Naji.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hereby second the motion ever moved by my brother, Senator Benga Ashafa, that the Senate do consider the report. I so second.
Those in favor that the Senate do receive and consider the Conference Committee report on National Transport Commission Bill 2018 SB 242. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Benga Ashafa, come and read the report. Yes, Senator Ashafa, present the report, please.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, once again, Senator Benga Ashafa, presenting the Conference Committee report on a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Transport Commission as an independent multimodal regulator for the regulated transport industry sectors and for other matters related thereto, 2018. The National Transport Commission Bill 2015 was passed by the Senate on Thursday, 15th March 2018, and in the House of Representatives on Tuesday, 11th April 2017. However, some differences were noted in the two versions of the bill as passed by the two chambers. Consequently, a conference committee was constituted in the Senate on Thursday, 12th April 2018, and the House of Representatives on Wednesday, 11th April 2018, to reconcile the areas of differences which appeared in 110 clauses of the bill. Mr. President, the conference committee met severally wherein the two versions of the bill as passed by the two chambers were deliberated upon and gray areas resolved accordingly. Mr. President, may I move to paragraph 5 of the submission, which is recommendation. The conference committee hereby recommend as follows: that the Senate do consider and pass the conference report on the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Transport Commission as an independent multimodal transport regulator for the transport industry sector and other matters related thereto, 2018, as recommended. Conclusion. On behalf of the members of the conference committee, I wish to thank the National Assembly for the opportunity provided to resolve areas of differences in this bill. I so submit, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, there are no objection or comments. Let me put the question. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the conference committee report on the National Transport Commission Bill 2018 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the Conference Committee report on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2018. Distinguished senators will recall that the observations raised by the Directorate of Legal Services on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2018 was referred to the Conference Committee for further legislative action on Thursday, the 31st of May 2018. Mr. President, we wish to invite distinguished Senator Donald Alashadura to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the conference report.
Senator Alashadura.
The Senate President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the Conference Committee report on Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2018. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ben Bruce.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Ben Murray Bruce, Bielsa East, number 3. That the Senate do receive the Conference Committee report on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2018 SB 237. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, in favor that the Senate do receive and consider the conference report on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2018 SB 237. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Alashadura, come and lead the report and then present the report.
the Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name once again is Senator Tayo Alasho Adura, representing Ondo Central Senatorial District. Report of the Conference Committee on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2018. The Conference Committee report on the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2018 was taken and approved in the Senate on Wednesday, 28th March 2018. In line with the standard practice, the National Assembly referred the bill to the Legal Directorate of the National Assembly for cleanup and to enable the clerk to the National Assembly transmit same to Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federation for his assent. The Legal Services Directorate made some observations that required further legislative action. The legislative actions. In view of the foregoing, the Conference Committee met to fine-tune the areas of concern pointed out by the Legal Services Directorate as follows. 1. In its observations, the Legal Directorate stated that Clause 13 of the bill establishes the board for the Commission and there is no provision for the Secretary of the board. Committee recommendation. The recommendation of the Legal Directorate of the National Assembly, hereinafter called Legal Directorate, suggests the need for provisions for appointment of Secretary for the Board of the Commission and for the Commission. The committee accepts the request to create the office of the Secretary for the Commission, who shall also serve as the non-member Secretary of the Board, while rejecting the request for creating a Secretary for the Board of the Commission. In line with this, the request for creation of Secretary for the Board in Section 13 is denied, while the request for same in Section 20 of the bill is granted. The committee recommends the inclusion of the following provisions as Section 20, subsection 4 of the bill. 24. There shall be appointed by the Commission a Secretary who shall be in charge of legal matters of the Commission. The Secretary, who shall not be a member of the board, shall keep the records, issue notices of meeting, conduct the correspondence of the board, and perform such other duties as the chairman or chief executive commissioner may from time to time direct. 2. In his observations, the Legal Directorate stated that in clauses 17(1)(e) and 47(1)(d) of the bill, the phrase serious misconduct is used, but it is not defined anywhere in the bill. Committee recommendation. The committee retains the provisions in the bill, and the rationale for this is that the term serious misconduct or gross misconduct issued in legislative drafting as omnibus legal phrase to encompass all manners of grave misconduct whose particulars, facts, or forms cannot be covered by any specific definition. A rule of interpretation of law will confine the interpretation of this provision to the act defined in the exclusion of any other unforeseen occurrence. Therefore, we might be doing more than good in trying to define it. 3. In its observations, the Legal Directorate stated that clauses 33(1) and 63(1) of the bill are ouster clauses and in conflict with the provisions of sections 20 and 44 of the Sheriff and Civil Process Act S6, Laws of the Federation 2004. The combined effects of clauses 33(1) and 63(1) of the bill is that the court cannot levy execution process either by attaching the physical property of Commission or National Petroleum Company or by garnishing proceeding unless a 3-month notice is given. However, if this is permitted, the proper and independent The power and independence of the judiciary is seriously undermined. Committee recommendation. The committee retains the provisions of the bill, and the rationale for this is that clauses 33.1 and 63.1 are not in any way outer clauses. They merely state that the public access of the commission or company cannot be attached in any judgment execution. This is a general rule of law globally, that you cannot attach a lien on a public property. The philosophy being that for the protection of the public good, one person alone cannot purport to own an asset belonging to the entire public by reason of a judgment. He should rather derive his judgment from the earnings or monies due to the public institution. Outer clauses, on the other hand, are clauses which seek to exclude the jurisdiction of the court to review or adjudicate on a particular matter. 4. In his observations, the legal directorate stated in clause 95.2 of the bill, the article of association of the management company prepared by the minister states the composition of the board without a secretary. This conflicts with section 293 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, C20, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, which requires that every company shall have a secretary. Committee recommendation. The committee retains the provisions in the bill. The National Asset Management Company is a company that is to be incorporated in line with the provisions of the Companies and Allied Matters Act. The Act provides for the appointment of a secretary, for which necessary procedures are contained in the Act. It is therefore unnecessary for this statute to provide further requirement for what has already been covered by the relevant instant law. 5. In his observations, the legal directors stated that under clauses 102 of the bill, the National Petroleum Company shall not be subjected to the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 and Public Procurement Act 2007. The implication of this provision is that the National Petroleum Company shall neither be subjected to the accountability and transparency in fiscal operations required under the Fiscal Responsibility Act, nor the due process in audits and public procurements under the Public Procurement Act. Committee recommendation. The committee retained the provision in the bill, and the rationale is the exclusion of the operation of the Nigerian Petroleum Company from the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 and the Public Procurement Act is designed to insulate the company from the bureaucratic drawbacks to which most government-owned companies and agencies are subject. The concept or ideology behind the creation of the Nigerian Petroleum Company must be recalled, which is to create a private public entity which can effectively compete in a competitive market. Yes. To burden this same institution with the requirements of government bureaucratic procurement process will be antithetical to the concept of its creation. Conclusion. The Senate is called upon to approve the recommendations of the Conference Committee. Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues.
If there are no comments, I'll put the question in. Those in favor that the Senate accepts the conference report, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the consideration of the interim report of the ad hoc committee on local content on the investigation of local content elements and cost variation relating to a Gina oil field and other related projects. The distinguished senators will recall that the report was laid on Thursday, the 31st of May 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Adiola Solomon to move the motion for the Senate to consider the report.
Senator Adiola Olamileko, Lagos West.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleague Adiola Solomon Olamileko, representing Lagos West Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, may I move that this Senate do consider the interim report on legislative investigation of local content elements and cost variation relating to the Egina oil field and other related projects. I so move.
Senator Samego.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Sam Egwu, I represent Ebonyi North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive interim report of the ad hoc committee on local content in respect of a motion on the investigation of local content elements and cost variation relating to Egina oil field and other related projects. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the interim report of the ad hoc committee on local content in respect of a motion on investigation of local content elements and cost variation relating to Egina oil field and other related projects. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Senator Solomon Olamileko.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleague Adiola Solomon Olamileko, representing Lagos West Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I want to go about this since we are having an interim report and we still expected to present the full and final report of this, so I wouldn't want to bother us with a lot of rhetoric like the introductory aspect of the report. Rather, Mr. President, in the introductory aspect, we have the introduction, a brief overview of the Egina oil field project. We also have the membership of the committee, the methodology adopted by the committee in carrying out the investigation, the investigative hearing that was done by the committee to date was also listed. Mr. President, we will go to the interim findings and observations that have been done so far by the committee, which is on page 5.0, finding and observation. Based on the foregoing, the following findings were observed by the committee. 5.1, that since the inception of the project in 2013, at almost 90% completion, it has not been audited in any form, despite incessant cost variation and allegation of corruption embroiled in the project that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) ought to have called for this audit under the terms of its contract. 5.2, award of the FPSO contract. The length for the construction of the FPSO, measuring approximately 330 meters in length and 61 meters in width and 33.5 meters in depth. It is also expected to include an oil storage capacity of approximately 2 million barrels. The FPSO will have a topside module with a gross dry weight of 34,000 tons. This was expected to be concluded in 2014. 5.2 Roman figure 2, that NAPIMS and the Local Content Development Monitoring Board, in accordance with the extant procedure, approved pre-qualified tenders in the year 2010. At the end of the screening process, two companies were shortlisted, that is Samsung Heavy Industry Limited and Hyundai Heavy Industry, for the final stage of the screening. Roman figure 3, that the Samsung submitted an initial bid of 3.5 billion, whereas Hyundai submitted an initial bid of $3.545 billion,
by Samsung, while Hyundai submitted an initial bid of $3.522 billion between 17th and 24th of April 2012. NAPIMS held commercial certification with Samsung and Hyundai to enable both companies clarify their bids. After the meeting, both companies submitted a review bid. Samsung submitted a revised bid in a sum of $3.143 billion, while Hyundai submitted its own review bid of $3.140 billion. Roman figure 4. At the end of the process, which spanned a period of 4 years between 2008 March and 30 2012, the manager of product sharing contract facility, the general manager of production sharing contract, and the group general manager did a memo to the group executive director of exploration, NNPC, recommending Hyundai for the award of the contract for having tendered the lowest bid. Total Upstream also recommended that the contract be awarded to Hyundai by a memo with reference number EGI/C115. However, despite all of the foregoing, NAPIMS and NNPC awarded the contract to Samsung instead of Hyundai Industries Limited. Roman figure 6. The committee also discovered that there were several allegations against the award of the contract to Samsung against the recommendation of NAPIMS and Total. These allegations centers on fraudulent acts and other abuse of due process by the then management of NNPC in the award of the contract to construct FPSO for OML 130 to Samsung Heavy Duty Industry. Cost variation. The committee observed in its findings that the project cost was estimated to be $6 billion. However, the cost component for the project was reviewed twice in the life of the project. Upon the first review, the cost was revised to $13 billion, and more recently, the cost was further revised and currently over $16.352 billion US dollars. The local content partner, NADOR, and other subcontractors were alleged to have participated in the cost variation in an attempt to earn more commission from the increased project cost. That's relating to Samsung. This was possible as a result of the contract with them were commission-based. It was also observed that Samsung, like several other contractors on the project, had begun making variation on the cost prior to the commencement of the project. The following variations were also observed from the initial contract value. Saipem Contracting Nigeria, initial contract sum $2.9 billion. Variation from the initial contract sum $805 million. FMC Technology Techniques $1.45 billion. Variation $33.07 million. Duco Limited $125.6 billion. Variation $4.5 million. Samsung Heavy Duty Industry Limited $3.143 billion. And as of today, that variation has gone up to $1 billion US dollars. Bell Oil and Gas Limited $4.8 million US dollars. Variation $3.6 million US dollars. Nope Oil and Gas Limited $1.63.7 million. Variation $52 million. The total contract sum is $7.8 billion, where the total variation as at today of this report is in region of about $2 billion US dollars. 5.4. Non-adherence to Nigerian content laws and policy. The committee observed that most of the reports on the local content in the project where local contractors and local commission agents fronting for the foreign companies partners at the expense of the Nigerian people, capitalizing on various loopholes in the NOGIC Act. As a result of these, local companies were seen to be used as a conduit by. For example, Bell Oil and Gas bidded for and got a line pipe contract of about $42 million, but all the pipes that were used were directly imported by Total itself, and about about $2 million, not 20, about $2 million was paid to Bell training to the Bell for training fee. There were also several assertions in the oil and gas sector to the effect that several of the planned local engineering activities, design, fabrication, and integration related to FPSO, as well as other elements of the project, were not executed in Nigeria, but in faraway South Korea, Goje, and other related countries, but only imported to Nigeria upon completion. Further observed was the role of Lador as a local content partner to Samsung on the FPSO element of the project was allegedly compromised, as there were allegations that Lador has connived with Samsung to take away the local job, thereby diverting revenue accruing to the federal government. Also observed was the award of contract to companies whose shareholding structure do not reflect the approved percentage of 51% Nigerian and 49% foreign investors. For example, FMC and the Nova Oil and Gas companies are 95% owned by foreign investors, while 2% were owned by Nigerian investors, and they all got contracts in millions of US dollars. In fact, infractions in expatriate quotas and import waivers involving some contractors were observed, e.g., some expatriates that came in for construction companies were sneaked into the oil and gas free trade zone for businesses relating to engineer oil field projects. In the initial course of the investigation, some infractions were also observed as carried out by some of these companies and were admitted by the Local Content Development Monitoring Board. And this as follows. And these infractions are listed in pages 8 and 9, pages 8, 9, and 10 of the report. And I wouldn't want to bother us with all this. And it includes the names of companies, the package, the infraction against these companies, and the expatriate quota violation. Discrepancies in contract documents. It was observed that most of the contract documents signed by Total and the various contractors different from those submitted to NAPIM. And by this, what it simply means is that you find out that the contract issued by NAPIM to these various companies that participated in this project are in variation with what was actually issued out by Total Nigerian PLC. Also, there were documentary evidences from Total showing that value of contract sum under the contract of Sapiem, for instance, is Sapiem, the contract document reads 3.2 billion US dollars. However, a document from the committee derived from the federal government via the NAPIM's NNPC, the contract sum is 2.7 billion US dollars, with a variation of almost 8 or 700 million US dollars. Non-appearance of relevant parties. These have majorly been taken care of, except we have that the MD of the Sapiem Consortium was made up of Sapiem Contracting Nigeria, Sapiem SA, and Sapiem Portuguese. The Sapiem Contracting Nigeria appeared before us, while that of Sapiem SA and Sapiem Portuguese, combined of which got a contract sum of about $1 billion, are not in the country, and as such, they got this contract from Nigeria and moved straight back to their various destinations. They have failed to appear, and the committee have insisted that they must appear, but as of today, it has been very difficult in getting them. For the Samsung chairman, their managing director finally appeared before the committee about 2 weeks ago, but in terms of documentation, the documentation which the MD of Samsung used to come into the country is not acceptable to the committee, and as such, the committee have to send back the MD of Samsung, for proper documentation with relevant government agency before he finally appear before the committee. Contract payment ratio. At the least contract payment ratio by Total was 80% in US dollars and 20%. However, it was discovered that other major contractors paid their subcontractors
led to the ratio received from Total, putting a devaluation and inflationary pressure on Nigerian currency. The table below shows the payment ratio to both the major contractors and the subcontractors. Sir, by this what we mean is that the Total Nigeria paid the major contractor, that are 4 in numbers, in ratio 90% of their contract sum in dollars, while only 10% of their contract sum in naira. But at the point of payment by Samsung, some of their contractors like Photoceli have their contracts in ratio 60 to 40, 60% in dollars, 40% in naira. Avion 60% to 40%, and so many more like that. And that will reflect, that shows on table in page 11. Recommendation. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I would like to withdraw recommendation 2, pending the time we will come up with the full report of this committee, because that will be part of a permanent recommendation going forward if Nigeria wants to continue to invest in this offshore business. Based on the above findings, and having realized that to conduct a full-scale investigation, there is need to engage professional consultants in the field, as the committee therefore recommends as follows: that there is need for us to carry out a value for money audit as approved for further clarification and investigation by reputable consultants in the following areas of the project. A, in the area of technical, financial, project management, and legal. This is the major recommendation this committee is putting before the Senate, because having carried out the preliminary investigation, there is need for us to go this direction, and to, since the NNPC, who is the major and representative of the federal government team, has refused to carry out, because as we speak, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, there is no one report from NNPC that shows the monitoring of activities of this project for the last 5 years that this project has been in existence. And for us to have a full-blown report that will be acceptable, that will be all-encompassing, that will show in clarity some of the shortcomings that is included in this project, I think there is need for the committee and the Senate to approve for the committee that a team of professionals be put together to carry out a full-blown investigation into the activities of this. I give you an instance, Mr. President. As we speak, $3.5 billion was earmarked for miscellaneous expenditure for this Egina oil field project. And as we speak, Mr. President, about some of $1.9 billion has been expended by Total as miscellaneous expenditure. And when we requested for the documentation that constitute this miscellaneous expenditure, they are frivolous expenses that can be taken care of in the body of the main budget. But because there is nothing to show for, out of this $16 billion project, about $12.6 billion have been expended today. So, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I will want to seek for the indulgence of my colleague that this recommendation be approved, so that we can conclude this investigation and submit our final report. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. First, I think it's important I state that I had the privilege from 1999 to 2002 of being the consultant to Baker Hughes, to Adama Group of Companies, to Rengold, to Best Land and Sea, which are all oil service companies, Mr. President. So I'm talking from the background of experience as far as joint venture investment is concerned. I will commend the committee for a job which they themselves have admitted is not conclusive, but that they need additional time and additional assistance to be able to come out with what will be reasonably acceptable by the Senate to be in the overall interest of this country. Now we have a problem, sir. The problem with joint venture is that the NNPC is only there to protect its own part of the investment in the joint venture. But what oil service companies do, just like in this case, is to ensure that more than 50% of what they say is their investment remain with them, and then they leverage on what Nigeria has made available to do the entire project. This is the exact thing that happens. And in doing so, sir, in the technical and financial evaluation of the bids, sir, certain things that appear apparently ridiculous are inserted. But what should worry us is that why will NNPC accept those terms and then accept them in the contract and then agree to their implementation, like in this case? Mr. President, let me give you one example. Part of the requirement for maintenance of rig is the provision of what they refer to as barite. There is barite in Nasarawa, sir, which was discovered. But the oil service company will put it in the joint venture contract and insist that barite must be imported from outside. But let me tell you the ridiculous aspect. While the contract for the provision of the barite is given to one company, another contract is arranged for the person who will transport the barite from the United States of America to Nigeria, and then another separate contract is arranged for somebody who is going to clear the goods at the port. Then another contract is arranged for those who will transport the barite to the field where the drilling is supposed to take place. All of them in a syndicated, fraudulent presentation in order to deprive this country of this revenue. And that is the more reason why I said this issue must be looked at seriously. I am very, very much conversant with what happens. And what normally happens, sir, is that the NNPC itself is comfortable in posting people who ordinarily should not be in nappings to manage the joint venture issue. And that is the reason why I'm not surprised when this committee came out with the observation that the project management itself is poor. Because if it had been there, we will not be having this problem. So I think there is the need for this Senate, in the interest of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to sit down and come out with what would have best. They have taken enough. For God's sake, we have reached a situation where we should be left with what we have in order to be able to take care of our people. So as far as I'm concerned, I commend this report. I am not part of the committee, but from my little experience, based on my little experience in the field, I think it's a job well done, but they need to do further than this. They need to go further than this with the support of the Senate for us to be able to restore what ordinarily should be the equitable position that Nigeria should enjoy in the oil service industry. Once again, thank you very much for that.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. President, I quite appreciate the presentation that has been made by Senator Olamilekon. And like the Deputy Senate Leader said, this really clearly shows to us very clearly the way in which contracting, particularly in the oil industry, is done. You know, the duplicity and all the corruption and the fraud, you know, that is built into the entire system. And this is designed, to achieve one single aim: the perpetuation of the project so that it can go on endlessly forever, and then the ridiculous cost overruns. But in spite of that, Mr. President, my own concern, Mr. President, is this is an area and a field where professional competence, both in the field of accounting and also in the area of petroleum industry, particularly the upstream type, is required, particularly when we are talking about the deep sea kind of exploration. And this is a very, very complicated area. And the committee has actually put its fingers on the real area where we need to do further interrogation in order to really determine what has gone on and to avoid further cost overruns and to reach conclusion as far as this project is concerned. But my own concern, Mr. President, is do we have, as the Senate, the actual resources that we require to really get the kind of professionals who are well versed in this field to really interrogate this process so that we can really come to grips with really what has happened, and so that we can save this nation from the bleeding, that is going to continue if you don't reach closure for some of these issues. These are very, very expensive business. The contract overruns rose from about 10 billion to about 16 billion. And if we don't put a stop to it, it will reach about 20, 30 billion without us getting any value on it. But we have the resources to do what the Commission recommended in their recommendation number 1. And I think this is an onerous responsibility on this, on you, Mr. President, and on this Senate, to find out the ways and means in which we can garner the resources to get competent people. We cannot just get the people who can give us the facts on this issue on the market. These are not the people that you can get on the market to give you results. We cannot get them on the market. You have to go into the real field so that you can get competent people, both on the technical and on the accounting side, to give us the full report that will help this Senate and will also help this nation, to get it out of this lockdown. Thank you, Mr. President. I forgot to say that I am Yahya Abdullahi representing Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. I think that the recommendation is just one, because it's an interim report, as he said. But I think the last contribution by Senator Yahya Abdullah really captures the issue, which is these jobs are very technical and they need professionals that truly understand it. And so it's a pity that you would have thought that really NMPC should have that kind of report ready. But I think what the chairman did brief me was that they really could not go anywhere else to find a detailed technical report or financial report. So I think there's no option for us. We have to find the resources. He's mentioned this to me, and we have to find the funding to be able to fund and get the right kind of people, internationally recognized, competent consultants or those that know this business, that will be able to give us the right kind of recommendation. So what I do, I would prefer that before we pass any comment, is to approve the appointment of a reputable consultant that can do a competent, independent, technical and financial review. And we will find the resources to pay for this consultant, whatever it's going to cost, so that we can get the right kind of recommendation and also findings that will definitely help us, not only as regards Egina, but future kind of projects like this. And let me also say that I hear a lot of times that people say, yes, Total made an investment when many were not ready to invest. We appreciate that, but I think that does not also give excuse to say because that investment was done, it shouldn't have been done properly, or the processes should not have. So this is not a witch hunt, but I think that as a country, a serious country, that really is saying we must be seeing that things are done properly. And there are companies that that specialize in these kind of things. I've seen reports in other countries as well, where companies like this have gone in and brought to the attention of their government where projects like this, and they've made huge savings for the country. So I think with those comments, we'll just go to the recommendation and approve that we do get a consultant, an international reputable consultant that can give us an unbiased professional report on this. So distinguished colleagues, then the recommendation is for us to one, approve that we do appoint a reputable consultant to carry out this technical and financial audit of these the processes so far in this engineer project. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Yes, have it. The second recommendation has stood down, and I think that's it. So, additional recommendation. Yes, Senator Basiakwa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Mr. President, owing to the fact that the project has actually witnessed several variations from 6 billion to 13 billion to 16 billion currently, Mr. President, I want to recommend that no further variation should be entertained on this project pending the outcome of the value for money audit.
Yeah, Mr. That's why I said in my comments that before, because already taking the these are technical projects that have time scales and many issues. What we should do is quickly start this project, this our own investigation, and I'm sure that this is an exercise that will not take us long to start getting some kind of report. The most important thing, I think, is to ensure that we have a reputable and competent report that is judged by world-based practices in this sector, that nobody can dispute whatever conclusion they come up with. I think that is key. And let us leave that for now and wait for when that report comes. Yes, and to Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. In view of the fact that this is an interim report and time is of the essence, I would like to recommend that the Senate do extend time for this ad hoc committee to complete its report. It goes without saying, actually, but it is important that, just for the record, that we extend the time. Mr. Chairman, I'm saying that I believe that the ad hoc committee will require additional time, extension of time, within which So may I suggest that they should submit their final report on or before October, in view of that we could submit our final on or before October 2018, in view of this, the fact that these consultants would require time to complete their work.
Chairman.
Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I'm in line with what...
All right, so we noted that. It's noted. Leader of the Senate.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I want to stand down the consideration of the 6th to 15th order of the day till another legislative day. So move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion moved by the leader. I second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. That's it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 16th order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Yahya Abdullahi on the need to provide urgent relief materials to the victims of rainstorm, windstorm, and fire outbreak in Argungu local government area of Kebbi State. Mr. President, may wish to invite Senator Yahya Abdullahi to move his motion.
Senator Yahya Abdullahi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Yahya Abdullahi from Kebbi North. I would like to present a motion on the need to provide urgent relief material to the victims of rainstorm, windstorm, and fire outbreak in Argungu local government area of Kebbi State. Senate notes with concern that on Sunday, 27th May 2018, there was a violent windstorm and heavy rainfall in Argungu and its environs in Kebbi State that devastated the community and rendered over 500 households homeless. Many more lost their properties, food stocks, clothing, and other valuables. A week before this calamity, a terrible fire outbreak at the main market resulted in huge losses of properties, cash, goods, and merchandise. Aware that it has been the practice of the federal government to provide relief and succor to victims of natural disasters through the intervention of National Emergency and Management Agency, concerned that so far no agency of the state or federal government has come to the assistance of the victims of these natural disasters. Worried that the victims are currently living in very deplorable conditions, having been dispersed into some neighboring villages and or squatting with either friends or relations, with little or nothing to cater for the needs of their families. Further worried that if urgent assistance is not extended, the victims will remain homeless and hungry. This will have adverse effects on their health and security and that of other people living around them. Accordingly, Senate resolved to call on National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to immediately intervene by providing relief materials including food, clothing, building materials to the victims of these disasters in order to assist them in rebuilding their lives, houses, shops, and businesses. I so move, Mr. President, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, Senator Kurfi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my name remains Senator Omar Ibrahim Kuripi, representing the good people of Katsina State. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, let me first of all congratulate my colleague for bringing this very important motion. It is rare a pity this kind of thing happening, but let me congratulate him again for the fact that no life was lost. In my own case, in Katsina, we lost 15 people died in this kind of flood. This is a very, very straightforward motion, Mr. President. I think the only thing we can look at is the prayers, and I will ask Mr. President to intervene because getting things from NEMA is becoming difficult. I had a similar problem. I approached NEMA. They are saying that we have to wait for another 2-3 months. The next 2-3 months, it will be belated. So my distinguished colleagues, I hope everybody will support this motion and we'll get a revolution. I so submit, Mr. President.
Yes, the Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleague, Bala Ibn Na'Allah, Kebbi South. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, the motion ably moved by distinguished Senator Yahaya is very, very straightforward and commendable in the sense that this thing happened just last week, and an attempt to assess the situation by the senators from Kebbi under his leadership, having come from the area, shows that the people were gravely, how do I put it, affected by this rainstorm. And I think that it's in the wisdom of the Senate that when issues of this nature happen to any one of us from our constituency, we come to see how we can assist. And in view of the fact that the motion is a very straightforward matter, I am of the opinion that the President can go into prayer. It's something that I have seen the nodding of everyone, including distinguished Senator Lieutenant General J.T. Hussaini, showing grave concern about what is happening, and I think that from that elderly position, we can go straight to the prayers. Thank you very much.
The prayer then call on National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to immediately intervene by providing relief materials, including food, clothing, building materials to the victim of these disasters in order to assist them in rebuilding their lives, houses, shops, and businesses. Those in favor of prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 17th and last order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Olurimi Tinubu and others on the World Environmental Day celebration. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Ross Oko to move the motion on behalf of Senator Tinubu.
Senator Rose Oko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues. There is a motion on the World Environment Day, which was yesterday, but is being moved today. The Senate is reminded that 5th of June is World Environment Day, set aside to create awareness on environmental issues and protection of the environment. The Senate is aware that this year's Environment Day celebration is themed Beat Plastic Pollution, a pointer to the need to cut down on use of and combat the problems caused by plastic pollution by making small changes in our everyday lives. The Senate is concerned about our excessive reliance on single-use plastic and disposable plastic, which is visible in use of polythene bags, plastic cups, sandwich wraps, disposable plates, spoons, and straws. Further concerned that annually tons of plastic bags end up in our drainages, water bodies, and oceans. This leads to flooding, pollution of water bodies, destruction of aquatic life, and consequently affect human life. Senate notes that even in working systems, the recyclability of these bags is so low that they end up in landfills as litter and in water bodies. Senate is aware that to reduce waste from plastic pollution, several countries, including the United Kingdom, Germany, and Australia, have introduced measures, including increase in tax payable on single-use bags and plastic, payment for these bags, consumer education, and retailer take-back programs. Senate is also aware that 9 African countries have introduced a ban on plastic bags, with the most recent being Kenya, and Rwanda recording the most success in this direction. This often involves an outright ban on production, sale, or importation of these plastic bags. Senate realizes that straightforward as these measures may seem, this is advanced for us as a nation, not because we are uneducated or unenlightened, but because we do not have the basics right. As a nation, we need, as a matter of urgency, to establish a system that ensures sorting of waste and recycling. This is especially important as waste can be a source of wealth. Senate is worried that a lack of adequate sanitary facilities, unattended heaps of refuse parked in our communities, and dilapidated building structures have contributed to outbreak and spread of preventable diseases such as Lassa fever, cholera, malaria, among others. Senate is concerned also about the force of winds experienced recently, indicating that the environment is more treacherous than ever. Notes also the 2018 flood outlook of the Nigeria Hydrological Agency, predicting coastal, river, flash, and urban flooding in 35 of the 36 states of the Federation. Senate is worried that for a nation plagued with desertification in the north, flooding and erosion in almost all states, gully erosion in the southeast, oil spill accidents in the Niger Delta, and soon in Port Harcourt, our budget, environmental policies, and actions suggest that we are not doing enough. The Senate accordingly resolves, therefore, to 1, urge all states of the Federation to participate in creation and review of policies and shedding light on our environmental issues. 2, urge the Federal Ministry of Environment and relevant agencies to ensure sensitization, particularly of young ones, on these environmental issues. 3, mandate legislation on adequate waste disposal and recycling system. 4, urge the introduction of eco-friendly reusable bags. 5, urge an increase in tax payable on single-use plastic bags and bottles to discourage use. And 6, urge the federal government to increase funding for the environment and environmental issues. I so move.
Leader of Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, let me congratulate Senator Olurimi Tinubu and, of course, Senator Ross Oko and those who sponsor this motion on the World Environmental Day celebration. That day was yesterday, and we couldn't take the motion yesterday due to our joint session. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the impact of environmental degradation, particularly in Nigeria, is very expensive and costly. Today, I want to assert that poverty is part of those impacts, because in the 60s, we were told, we were then kids, that Lake Chad provided so many things, so many resources to our people. People would travel from Sokoto up to Lake Chad. I will recall that people travel from our places to Lake Chad to fish, to farm, and of course come back with a lot of wealth, so to speak. Lake Chad today is less than 15% of what it used to be. Mr. President, in the northern part of Nigeria, there are about 12 states that are under the destructive and devastating impact of desert encroachment. We have lost most of our land. In Yobe, we have lost over 75% of the land to desertification. So the perennial agricultural process doesn't work much in my state. Where we have riverine environments like my senatorial district, then we try to practice irrigation farming. So today, we have herdsmen fighting with farmers. This is conflict on the available resources. What are the farmers looking for? They are very fertile agricultural land. And those lands are what the herders are looking for as well, because there are more grasses, better fodder, and water. Until we're able to conquer our environment, reclaim where we can, this conflict will continue. We may pray, we may wish that they don't happen, but they will continue to happen because our population is increasing by the day, and the needs of our people will be increasing in the same proportion. So we have a task as leaders to do whatever it takes in terms of arresting the degradation of the environment, the oil spillage that we suffer in the Niger Delta, the gully erosion you see that frighten our people in the southeast are environmental issues that we have to work to capture and domesticate. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, it is easier said than done, but I believe that we should insist that between us and the executive arm of government, let's have serious national action plans on each of the issues that affect us today, so that we have something to measure. We give ourselves time. In the next 2-3 years, we want to reduce gully erosion in the southeast by so percentage, and this will cost so much. In the next 2-3 years, we want to reduce the area that is under desert control. This we can do through plant or tree planting to ensure that we have windbreaks that will stop this desert encroachment. That the oil spillage, well, we are doing enough. At least we are trying to recover Ogoni. When we clean it up, we are doing that. But we need to stop oil companies from doing things that will bring about the spillage. And of course, our communities who may sometimes be misled into breaking some of these spies because of whatever reason or benefit have to be educated. With this, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I want to congratulate Nigerians for the World Environmental Day celebration that was supposed to be yesterday. But for us in this chamber, and indeed the National Assembly, we need to extend our hand to the executive to ensure that we have something to work on with them to bring these degradations to an end, or at least ameliorate the situation. Thank you very much for the privilege.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to congratulate Senator Tinubu and the other movers of this motion, and also to congratulate all Nigerians on the World Environmental Day, and to say that yes, indeed, it is proper that this day is set aside to look into the issues of environment which daily affect the lives of people. I also want to align myself with the submissions of the Senate leader on the degradation of the environment today, and to say that it is all over the country, even from the Lake Chad region all the way down to the Niger Delta. The issues of environment are staring us in the face. Within the Niger Delta region, for instance, we are having so much issues of oil sheen, oil pollution, oil leak, and sometimes outright vandalization that leads to the pollution of the environment. Aquatic life is being lost, people's means of livelihood destroyed, and then sometimes the kind of health hazards arising from acidic rain due to continuous environmental pollution, the burning of gas and all that, which we are yet to eliminate, and then it comes back to us as acid rain, and at the same time, when the oil spill occurs, most of the land destroyed, and you cannot plant anything. It has also led to a lot of poverty and, of course, conflicts all over the country. So I want to say that, yes, indeed, it's important that we have a national action plan to look into how we can conquer our environment and make it much better. You mentioned the issue of the Southeast in terms of gully erosion. It's also there in the South-South, and I think it must be there in other parts of Nigeria. We do know that, for instance, the road between Itu and Aba, at the time we couldn't pass because the road was taken over by gully erosion. So terrible that we did a lot of remedial measures when I was the governor, and even the current administration is also struggling to ensure remedial measures, but unfortunately, the problem is heavier. It will need over 100 billion for us to be able to capture even the environmental gully erosion on just that road alone, which is a federal road. And this is the situation that stares us in the face. So I think indeed, Mr. President, without speaking much, we in the Senate share in the congratulatory message to Nigerians, and we work closely with the executive and all agencies concerned to ensure a better environment for our children. And today, we do know that a lot of diseases like Ebola and others are airborne, and so many of these flu and other things are airborne, and if the environment is not clean, then we can have a healthy life. So I share in this motion, and I want to wish all Nigerians well, and pray that God will give us the resources to combat all the disasters and all the things that are happening to the environment, leading to degradation and pollution that have affected the lives of people and led to increased poverty in the land. I so submit, sir.
Yes, Senator Chindu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Andrew Chindu. Mr. President, I think the issue has been properly presented to the Senate. But I want to just underscore the devastating nature of this issue of plastic bags. Only recently, Mr. President, in Thailand, it was reported that whale swallowed over 80 plastic bags and could not digest its food anymore, to the point that it was now reported to have been dead. And the marine biologists in that side of the world did report this internationally. Secondly, people are no longer, the world is no longer satisfied, content with companies making profits. Because of environmental challenges the world is facing today, people are no longer talking of profit for organizations or corporate social responsibility, but rather emphasizing on economic mutuality. It is important that organizations that find themselves anywhere in the world, and in Nigeria in particular, should now emphasize on putting back to the society, to the environment they find themselves, not just to draw oil, but to ensure that the system or environment is sustained. This is the extent that the world is looking at. And Nigerian government should also be cautious of this. So I very commend my colleagues, and in the absence of our distinguished chairman, President has done a beautiful job. This is the extent that the world is changing, and the challenge is before all of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Foster Ogala, I'd just like to just say a few words because of time. We don't have any extension of time, so.
Thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me, and I'm happy that no less a person than the leader and the minority leader of the Senate seconded this motion, and other contributions are coming. I just want to say that Nigerians, governments and states should improve on the curriculum of their schools to ensure that environmental education is emphasized. 2, now that Ogoni cleanup has taken several years, over 10 years, for it to be implemented, I want that the federal government should also commence the environmental studies, pollution studies of all the other Niger Delta states producing oil and gas. These are the contributions I want to make. Thank you.
Let's go to prayers. Prayer 1, urge all states of the Federation to participate in creation and review of policies and shedding light on our environmental issues. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 2, urge the Federal Ministry of Environment and relevant agencies to ensure sensitization, particularly of the young ones, on these environmental issues. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 3, enact and enforce legislation on adequate waste disposal and recycling system. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 4, urge the introduction of eco-friendly reusable bags. Those in favor of prayer 4 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 5, urge an increase in tax payable on single-use plastic bags and bottles to discourage use. Those in favor of prayer 5 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. And prayer 6, urge the federal government to increase funding for the environment and environmental issues. Those in favor of prayer 6 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Let me join all others to wish us World Environmental Day, which was yesterday, but still celebrated. I think in celebrating it is a reminder to all of us that we have a lot to do in addressing the environmental challenges of our country, which unfortunately affects every part of the country, from erosion to oil spillage to desert encroachment and etc., and also things like plastic pollution, which requires a national policy in order to guide us right on how to address this. But I'm sure we are prepared here in the Senate to work very closely with all stakeholders and the executive for us to see how we can make some progress in the coming years ahead, because this is an important issue that we must address and address now. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, having concluded all the items on the order paper, I move that this Senate do adjourn till tomorrow, Thursday, the 7th of June, 2018 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move. Opposition Leader.
Mr. President, my name is Godswill Akbabi, representing the good people of Ikere Central District and the minority leader of the Senate. I rise to second the motion heavily moved by the Senate leader that this Senate do adjourn till 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I so second.
Just before I put the question, announcement of the committee to investigate the Amnesty International report on human rights abuse in the Northeast, Senator David Umoru, Senator Morare, Senator Abukia, Senator Jeremiah Yosini, Senator Binta Masi, Senator Stella Odua, and Senator Ben Mori Bruce. Those in favor that this Senate is hereby adjourned to Thursday, 7th June 2018, 10 a.m. from say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. The Senate is accordingly adjourned to Thursday, 7th June 2018, 10 a.m. prompt.